Alright, everybody, time to make my UFC 155 Dos Santos versus Velasquez 2 picks. It's a little early, but you got Christmas and everything coming up. Might as well do it while I have time. Uh, First off, man, didn't this card actually look awesome at one point? Like about 3 or 4 months ago. I mean, everybody's involved. You had Forrest Griffin, you had Chael Sonnen. I mean, you had Phil Davis was in there at one point. You had Chris Weidman, Alan Belcher. I mean, everybody was involved. Oh wait, hold on. Actually, Alan Butcher's still fighting. Never mind. But I mean, you had such a loaded card, but then over the months it just dwindled down to, pretty much being a one fight show. But it's a pretty big fight, so maybe it'll be awesome. All right, from the top, Junior Dos Santos versus Cain Velasquez, a rematch. The first fight was over in barely a minute. Santos clipped him. Velasquez went down. That was it. Since then, Dos Santos destroyed Frank Mir at UFC 146. And at the same show, Cain Velasquez just absolutely brutalized Antonio Silva in probably the bloodiest UFC fight you'll ever see. Going into this fight, there are two things that stand out at me. The first thing involves striking. The other one involves cardio. Start off with the striking. Both these guys are really good strikers. I'm about to say strangers. They know each other pretty well. And to start off, Cain Velasquez, he's a striker. We've seen this. If he hits you, you go down. We saw what he did to Antonio Silva. We saw what he did to Brock Lesnar. Call up Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, and they'll tell you, Cain Velasquez, the dude can hit hard and he can hit fast. Junior Dos Santos, he's also a striker. He can beat the crap out of you. But here's the difference between Dos Santos and Velasquez, and this might be the key variable in this matchup. And that's the fact that while Velasquez is purely a striker, Dos Santos, he's a boxer. He's got technique, he's got rhythm, and he uses that as part of his strategy. Cain Velasquez, all he really does is kind of look for that knockout throw, where Dos Santos really incorporates all kinds of striking into his repertoire. So he's using it as a defensive thing to keep his range, to set you off, to set up things like takedowns. So he's not just out there saying, I'm going to punch you and knock you out and kind of hope for the best like Velasquez does. He's actually very versatile and very strategic about what he does. And I think that definitely bodes well for guys that are looking to go into 25-minute long fights, possibly. So I think as far as striking goes, Dos Santos has a huge advantage over Velasquez. And he also has advantage in the cardio because I've seen Velasquez fight, and after a minute, he's not really, well, not a minute, after a round, after a round, he really slows down. I've seen this in pretty much every fight he's had. His fights generally don't last long, which is why I guess you can say you just don't see it that much. But go back to some of these fights he's had, like the one he had against, was it Mirko Prokop? The one where, it just went on forever and he was low as molasses going in the final round. Junior Dos Santos, we've seen him go toe-to-toe with some dudes that are really fierce, that are really powerful. Roy Nelson, Shane Carwin went the distance. And Dos Santos, that was his key. He just had so much, gas in his tank that he's able to keep fighting on when his opponents just pretty much died going to the second round. So I think what we're going to see here, probably not a remake of the first fight where it's over in like 12 seconds. I think Dos Santos does win this fight, and I think he wins it by third round stoppage. And then we get this whole crazy thing coming up with Alistair Overeem and maybe Daniel Cormier, maybe even Josh Barnett in 2013, but we'll get there when we get there. All right, lightweight fight, Joe Lauzon versus Jim Miller. Joe Lauzon, he's really, and I hate to use this term, but I think we can all agree upon it. He is basically the UFC equivalent of a turd that won't flush. Because every time you think this guy is, out of the company, he goes in, puts on a crazy surprise victory, and he's back in the running in the lightweight division. Taking on Jim Miller. Jim Miller, of course, almost had his tongue ripped off by Nate Diaz back in, when was it? May, I think. Jim Miller's a way better fighter than Joe Lauzon. Lauzon, he can get some surprise victories every now and then, but Miller is just a way better fighter, better wrestler, better at submissions, better striker. I think he's going to win this fight. Unanimous decision. From that, we got Tim Boetsch taking on Costo Filippo, and both of these guys, to me, are extremely overrated. Tim Boetsch right now is ranked I think top 5 as far as middleweights go in the world, which I think is just absolutely insane. He's a dude that's won. He's on a 4-fight win streak. Okay, I get that. He had that fight against Yushin Okami where he won by a complete fluke, and he beat up a Hector Lombard that just didn't care. So now he's like 1 or 2 fights away from getting Anderson Silva, which would be a disgrace and a potential lawsuit at the hands of Zuffa. Costo Filippo, he's also riding like a 4-fight win streak. Probably didn't deserve half of those wins. This fight probably will not be entertaining in any way, shape, or form. But I just got a feeling Filippo, Boach, the train's got to slow down eventually. Eventually he's got to get exposed. Filippo, he's not really a great fighter, not an A-lister by any means. But I think he's going to go in this fight, and he's going to pretty much neutralize Boach's striking, and he's going to ground out a unanimous decision victory here. So I'm calling the mild upset and going with Filippo in that bout. Yushin Okami versus Alan Belcher. Alan Belcher, he had that fight against Rusmor Palahares where he shocked the world. He's supposed to get his arm broke. Why am I messing up so much? I'm really excited for the holidays, I guess. Where against Palahares, he's supposed to rip his leg open, but he fought it off. Yushin Okami coming off a couple of losses. The Silva loss, the Boach loss. Still fighting to be a contender. Belcher on his way up. I'm going to go with Belcher by a 3rd round submission. I think it's going to be a crazy fight. It kind of reminds me of the Belcher Akiyama fight from UFC 116, where it just goes back and forth, and in the last round, Belcher pulls off something crazy and freaky and wins the fight. Chris Levin versus Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson, if you don't know, was the guy that got absolutely killed by Ronaldo de Souza. Did I call him de Souza? Ronaldo Souza. De Souza's, yeah, never mind. Chris Levin wins this fight. He wins it 2nd round knockout. Not even close to being a competition, if you ask me. All right, and we got the prelims. Brad Pickett against Eddie Wineland. Go Pickett. Eric Perez versus Byron Bloodworth in a bantamweight fight. I'm sorry, I don't know who either of these guys are, so Bloodworth just because he sounds like a Darkstalkers character. Melvin Goulart versus Jamie Varner. Oh, good lord. Oh, man. These guys should be contenders, and they're fighting on the preliminary card. Goulart, decision. Unanimous. Michael Johnson versus Miles Jury. I don't know who Miles Jury is, so I'm going to pick him. Phil DeFries versus Todd Duffy. Oh, they let Todd Duffy back in the UFC. Oh, when did that happen? Oh, well, yeah, he's going to win. 1st round knockout. We've got a flyweight fight between Chris Carrizo and John Moraga. I'm going to go Moraga. And featherweight fight, Holloway Max versus Leonard Garcia. He's Garcia, y'all. He's going to win this one. Decision. So there you go. Not really looking like to be one of the best cards of the year, but you never know. Crazy things can happen. So that's my picks. See you in 2013, guys.